You say nothing except for the presiding officer. Well, the Supreme Court had something to say about that. New York Times Company versus Sullivan, 1964. New York Times versus Sullivan, 1964 is a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision holding that First Amendment freedom of speech, which I know you know about because it was on one of your slides, protects limit of the ability of the public officials. The Supreme Court, in an opinion written by Justice William Brennan, reviewed the matter, quote, against the background of a profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. But there's more. 1966, Rosenblatt versus Baer. The court elaborated that public officials include not just those in elected positions, but also people who work for elected officials. So for you to say that nobody else can be addressed is a total farce. You cannot make a law, a bylaw, a rule, a mandate that goes against the Supreme Court, which is the law of this land. Thank you.
Yeah! Woo! The law of the land, pal.
Once again, but I know the strength of the laws.
They don't care. They be with them.
Thank you for
Next
addressing the
speaker
board.
is Eddie. Is Eddie here? I'm right here, sir.
Hey, you gonna call me Santa Claus?
Good evening, board. To comply with your rules, my name is Eddie Kabasinski. I am a City of Warren 5th District Councilman. I reside at 8679 Hudson Avenue in Warren, Michigan, 48089. I do not live in Clinton Township, but I did have my business here in Clinton Township, and I do a lot of business in Clinton Township outside of my council duties. With that being said, I would like to read an article that was written by C.W. Charles Cook that was in the National Review, having to do with your firearms resolution. Quote, rural areas had a long tradition of high school students going hunting in the morning before school and sometimes storing their guns in the trunk of their cars during the school day, parked on the school grounds. Many of these guns they could buy at most any hardware store or gasoline station or even by mail order, until the 1968 Gun Control Act, supported heavily by major gun manufacturers who wished to push out their competition, put a stop to this. It goes on further, that is, if they handed them in up at all. Up until the 1970s, especially in rural areas, it was commonplace to see kids entering and leaving their school campuses with rifle bags slung lazily over their backs. Guns were left in school lockers, and rifles and shotguns were routinely seen in high school parking lots, hanging in the rear windows of pickup trucks. A good friend of mine is from North Dakota. His father was telling me recently that in the late 1960s, he would hunt before school and then take his rifle and his blood-stained kills to school to show his teachers. He and his friends would compare their shooting techniques in the school grounds. Nobody batted an eyelid in North Dakota. School shootings were non-existent. In the country at large, they were extremely rare. I bring this up to you because in every one of the public schools that we had in the city of Warren that was prior to 1975, all the schools had a lower level, basement level. It was where the civil defense supplies were kept at. There was also a shooting range. That's right. If you have any school buildings left in Chippewa Valley or in Clinton Township or in Mount Clemens that were built prior to 1975 in the basement where you had your civil defense supplies, you would have had a shooting range. The children were taught on basic marksmanship. Now, why was this necessary? Well, because this country fought in World War II, we fought in Korea, and we fought in Vietnam. and it was to teach the kids, mainly the male students, about basic marksmanship so that basic training, basic combat training could be accelerated. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the board. Next speaker is Frederick. Assistant.
Yeah, Fred.
You're not gonna call me.
They will.
I wrote Santa Claus in the paper.
They have to.
Yes, they have to.
Okay.
I handed it to her.
My name is Fred Neatsted, resident of Clinton Township for over 40 years. Children, grandchildren go to the district. Board President Pearl, can you read my sign?
You're not gonna answer.
Go ahead, yes.
The Supreme Court decided in 1927 that a minority opinion is worthy of being heard. Did you know that? Do you know who this minority group was? This was the Communist Party in the United States of America. The person that won the case in the Supreme Court in 1927 would be the eventual leader of the Communist Party in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. They had the right to be heard, Mr. Pearl. What about the residents of this district? Do they have the right to know what this board believes about pornography? Remember now, that word is a word that gets censored on your website, right? You know what censorship is, right? That's where you enforce silence. Yeah, it says right here. See, I made that bigger for you, right? Enforced silence, right? So I get my time. It's 3 minutes, right?
Spell it.
Yeah. Pornography. Pornography.
Yeah.
Censor that. 1973 court decision based on community standards. How do we judge community standards across the United States? It depends on what the community says. What is the community able to say if the board enforces silence? Why didn't you pass the resolution on the
Exactly.
American flag? I went to the community college right here in the corner, Hall Road and Garfield. I looked for the American flag. I invite you to go there and look for the American flag on the center campus of Macomb County Community College. Tell me if you can find one, please. Pornography, sexual conduct. Is the reading in the books in your school about salacious conduct?
Yes.
Do you think maybe that might be pornography?
Yes.
I thought education talked about the act of sex, not the feeling of sex. Does that have educational value?
No. Hell no. Good job, Fred. Woo!
Yeah.
Thank you for addressing the board. Next speaker is Amelia.
Oh, Amelia.
All right, Amelia. Yes.
They're afraid of you.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah, look up the word pornography. Everybody should know the terminology, pornography.
Ooh.
So bad.
Can any of you, is this even on? Is this microphone?
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Just yell it.
Can any of you board members tell me what the primary responsibilities of a school board are? No one can answer?
They won't.
Not even the lawyer knows?
Not even Sleepy Cat.
Well, even I, a 14-year-old kid, knows the answer, so I'll tell you. According to the National School Board Association, the primary responsibilities are providing a successful education for students with the help of community input district. So, let's pick this apart further so you board members can fully grasp the concepts. Essentially, the school board advocates for students by engineering a better future for them. This must include working with parents in the process, not excluding them. As far as this board working with the community, you get a grade of F on that aspect. You won't meet with parents. You deny their FOIA requests or make them pay high fees to obtain public information. You even violate the rights of public commenters at these board meetings. Your own lawyer seems clueless about some crucial laws and arbitrarily implements rules that none of you follow. There's absolutely no partnership with parents going on.
He's got his head
here.
down.
Continuing on, regarding your responsibilities, the board sets the standard of achievement in the district and thus is accountable for student performance. According to state test scores, only 39% of students in your district are proficient in math and 49% in reading.
Wow.
Some of your schools have even
despicable.
lower scores. Your college readiness index is only 21 out of 100, meaning most kids aren't ready for college when they graduate from a CVS high school. That's a direct reflection of your management or lack thereof. Allowing yourselves to be controlled by left-wing National Teacher Union boss Randy Weingarten isn't working well for this district. It's impossible to align with Marxist and left-wing zealots and still prepare kids for a successful career in future. Your alignment with them may make you safe from prosecution, but it's at the expense of kids' futures. You own that. Here's a quote from Thomas Sowell. It's hard to imagine a more stupid or more dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. Parents, it's essential to vet school board candidates before you vote. As we clearly see with this board, elections have consequences. Unfortunately, it's your kids
Let her
who are
finish.
paying the price.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah! Good job, Amelia.
Thank you for addressing the board. Leanne, your hands will go ahead.
That was great. Yep. Some people are leaving it.
At the last board meeting, someone read an excerpt from one of the controversial books this board is determined to keep in their school libraries. The excerpt was depicted from a young child's point of view as she was being sexually abused by her parents. During that reading, I turned to look at the back of the room, where supporters of these books like to sit together. I witnessed a woman laughing as that speaker read the horrific depiction of pedophilia. I was in disbelief that anyone would find sexual abuse of a child as hilarious entertainment. So I stood up to face her. She saw me looking at her and sarcastically mouthed, "What?" as she continued to laugh while the speaker was still reading. Her group is fighting to keep sexually graphic books available to children. They support Banned Book Week, where sexually graphic books are prominently featured in school libraries, and children are encouraged to check them out and read them. They insist the books provide an educational value. So it's educational to read about children being raped and abused. It's educational to normalize adult sex acts in graphic details and view cartoons that depict those acts. Findings from multiple comprehensive studies underline a stark correlation between child sexual victimization and the susceptibility to trafficking. Studies found some kids reading these sexual depictions become desensitized to their graphic nature. Kids may find the actions acceptable, even those of rape, because those books are featured in their school and therefore can't possibly be describing anything bad, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kids may be swayed into providing nude photos of themselves to predators online and even become part of a sex trafficking ring. Children are an essential part of the trafficking industry,